morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. The ARC of California is thrilled to announce Caring Futures, a groundbreaking program dedicated to supporting caregivers and family members of adults with disabilities. Understanding the unique challenges faced by family caregivers as they age, Caring Futures offers critical assistance, resources, and a supportive community. Today's Caring Conversation is just one part of Caring Futures program here at the ARC of California. As you see, we have ASL interpretation for our discussion today. You can turn on closed captioning by clicking the button in the bar below. At the end of today's conversation, there will be a question and answer session. At that time, we'll invite you to raise your hand or type your question in the Q&A and ask our guest directly. Hello, everyone. My name is Felisa Strickland. I am a proud sole parent caregiver to my daughter, Lily. Lily is 23 years old. She has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy, and IDD, and requires full-time care. We enjoy our life and live in Santa Barbara, California. Alongside full-time caregiver, I am a strong advocate for individuals with disabilities. I serve as a board member for the ARC of California, as well as Alpha Resource Center of Santa Barbara. I also participate on many committees and enjoy getting involved in fundraisers and advocacy projects in our community. As a Caring Futures instructor and parent educator, I am thrilled to be here for this important conversation with you and our special guest. Today's topic is community and connection on your caregiver journey, ways to connect, find a sense of belonging, and avoid burnout and isolation. I am excited to introduce our guest. Jessica Patay is the founder and executive director of We Are Brave Together, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports caregiving moms with children of all types of disabilities and neurodiverse diagnoses. In addition, she is a sought-out speaker, podcast guest, writer and retreat coordinator, fundraiser, mother of three, social influencer, and a champion of self-care practices and their positive effect on motherhood. She is a contributing author to the forthcoming title, Becoming Brave Together, Heroic and Extraordinary Caregiving Stories from Mothers Hidden in Plain Sight. The book is set to release on May 1st, 2024. Jessica excels at creating and supporting communities of caregiving moms, and she is a visionary for the disability community worldwide. Jessica's mission is to combat the burnout and isolation that these moms and their families face by creating supportive, resourceful, and empowering communities and meaningful connections. Her vision is that every family in the disability community is strengthened, equipped, and inspired for their unique journey. This vision has fueled We Are Brave Together's growth in 6 years and into an international community of over 2,200 moms representing all 50 states and 24 countries. Jessica has helped launch dozens of support groups throughout the US, New Zealand, and Australia. In order to extend her outreach, Jessica hosts a podcast, Brave Together with Jessica Patay, which offers a library of inspirational stories and resources for the disability community. Without further ado, please welcome Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Good morning, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited about this conversation. So much to talk about in this topic. So before we dive into questions, tell me a little bit about yourself so our audience can get to know you better.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I am a wife to one. I've been married to my husband, Chris, for almost 27 years, and we have 3 kids. I say 3 kids that feel like 4. We have Luke, who is 23. We have Ryan, who is our son, who I say made me a caregiver. He is 20, and he was diagnosed at 5 weeks of age with something called Prader-Willi syndrome. It's a rare genetic disorder, and I always say that there is no cocktail party explanation to really share about PWS, but in a nutshell, he was born with very low muscle tone. So all milestones were delayed. We spent a month in the hospital not knowing what was going on. He didn't cry. He didn't wake for food. And about a week after we got out of the hospital with a feeding tube, we were delivered a diagnosis. So we are grateful that we got an early diagnosis. The early years are very much focused on milestones and all the early interventions, OT, PT, and speech. He started growth hormone as a baby. And then if PWS makes the news, it's because there is an insatiable food drive that kicks in childhood. And you don't really know when it's going to kick in. For Ryan, it was a slow burn. We didn't have to start locking our kitchen till he was age 13. And by the time he was 16, we began to live with an incredible vigilance, making sure that things are locked at all times and that Ryan doesn't have access to any extra food. It is life threatening. Ryan does need to be watched 24/7. He's affected intellectually, academically. He's currently in the transition program with our school district and is very happy to be there, thankfully. And soon he will be 21. And my youngest is Kate, and she is 18. She's out of high school. She's doing an EMT program, and she's actually working as a respite caregiver. So that's a little bit about my family.
Wonderful. So tell us, you told us a little bit about Luke. So tell us a little bit about how that led you to where you are today.
Well, I am so grateful that my husband and I received an early diagnosis for Ryan. And frankly, we were scared and shocked and alone. We did not have anybody in our community that had kids with any medical issues, disabilities, diagnoses. And so when we found out about Prader-Willi California Foundation and the national organization that also serves families with this diagnosis, we jumped into support groups. Our first support group, Ryan was 2 months old. We jumped in right away. We were just so scared. I don't know who we thought we would meet in that basement floor meeting room, but we met the loveliest, joyful people who became our instant friends. And we just started creating community from there. And we knew we were not going to be alone and that we had people actually in the South Bay, Los Angeles area where I live that also had children with PWS. And so we had people to navigate, we had people to learn from, we had people to go to ask our questions or to raise our concerns or share our fears and all the what ifs. And it made a huge difference. I will never forget that first meeting and how it shifted something in me, knowing that I was not alone.
That is exactly how I felt when we moved to. We lived in Virginia Beach before we moved here, and Lily was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And back there, I didn't have a community or a support system. And then we moved here to Santa Barbara in 2012, and fairly quickly, I'd say within the first year, I met other families. I got connected to different communities, community resources, and I can't tell you, like that just took such a weight off my shoulders. We had lost Lily's dad. I was very, in a new place, but feeling very optimistic about a new start, right? And so that community has definitely led our path since we've been here, and it's really helped me out of what could have been a very isolating time. So I completely understand what you're saying. So your personal experience as a caregiving mom to Ryan has kind of urged you to and that community that you found kind of urged you to create We Are Brave Together. Tell us a little bit about why you think that community connection was necessary, and how what were the signs that you saw that we needed something larger than just your everyday support group, that random support groups. I mean, it's pretty much a movement what you've created. So tell us a little bit about how you started that. I mean, I've watched you grow it. I remember being one of the first 200 people in the group, and I'm really, honestly, I can't say how excited I am to see how much growth has happened in the last 6 years. So that pretty much in my mind makes you an expert. So I'd love to hear, how you did that and what kind of recommendations you have for others, not necessarily to start a movement, but how to join one to, so that people can caregivers especially, it can be such an isolating situation. And especially, when you're caregiving for your own children and people don't understand, and you just feel like you need those people that get it, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I like to say, well, my passions and my burdens collided. And that is part of the genesis of We Are Brave Together. I am passionate about the friendship of women. I'm passionate about community. And I was even before I had Ryan, but that completely cemented the need for community and connection. And, given that I too am a caregiver, I had such a heart. I was so burdened for the disability community, for the special needs community, knowing the highs, the lows, the isolation, the extra stress, the extra appointments, the extra everything. And I knew that I personally was buoyed by being around other people who got it. And I also know what it's like to be around people who suck your energy because they don't understand and they can't understand. And I have both in my life. I have people who do not have children with any diagnosis or struggles, and they have become amazing supports to me. And I also know that having women and fellow caregiving mothers who I share a bond with really make a huge difference. And I just wanted that. I wanted that for every caregiving mom. And I know how exhausting the journey is. And I know that the thought of creating community feels like a chore. It feels like too much. Uh, it feels like a luxury. And also, I think moms are afraid if they attend some sort of supportive community, support group, it's just going to make them more sad. So they avoid it. And I'm here to say that, yes, you're going to hear a lot of people's stories. And yes, you might feel it. You might feel the weight of it, but it does not have to take you down. It can actually energize you because you see yourself in other people's stories and you witness everybody's strength, resilience, advocacy, tenacity, and of course, incredible love for their children. So, yes, it's both and. You can feel some heaviness after being in a support group, at a retreat, in a group with others who are walking similar chronic circumstances. And you don't have to take it on. You do not have to take on everyone's pain. You can definitely bond with others and receive all the advantages, all the positives of being in community. So when Ryan was born, of course, like everyone, I'm sure, why? Why me? Why him? Why us? And then at some point, I was able to shift that to, what now? What now? What am I supposed to do with this? This cannot be just in vain. This can't be for naught. What can I do with this? And so I was just open to the answer to that question. And I can look back and see so many things that were part of the stepping stones to getting me to launch We Are Brave Together, for sure. For sure. I knew I always wanted to do something for moms. And there's so much out there for kids, but there hasn't been much focus on caregiving moms. So that's why I wanted to do that.
What were the signs that you saw that the community was seeking it too? That your people were looking for you, right?
Well, I think when I would do dinners out with other Prader-Willi moms or dinners out with moms from my school district or get-togethers, I think we did maybe a girls' weekend in both groups. I just saw how eager everyone was to be together, to have the break, to just be in a safe space where people understood you. You didn't have to over-explain. You didn't have to apologize for your tears or if you were angry or feeling bitter or whatever, wherever you were in that grief cycle. And I saw the beautiful repercussions. And I mean, again, that was all part of the dreaming and scheming to start something like We Are Brave.
Well, your vision is just amazing, and I just love watching it grow. Before you started We Are Brave Together, what were some of the ways that you sought out and created your connections?
Well, certainly in the PWS world, my son's diagnosis, there were groups and conferences that I made connections with other moms, other parents. And in my school district, our little special ed preschool had a PTA, joined that. So I met other parents, I met other moms, and we just continued to build community from there because it was so nice to have people who understood the diagnosis and all the navigating around that specific diagnosis. But then I also needed people in my school district who understood how to manage that because that's a whole thing. And then also in the state of California, as you know, we've got the regional center, and navigating regional center and services for your child is also a mountain to climb. So I just kept surrounding myself with people who understood the journey.
How would you suggest that parents caring for their adult children or caregivers supporting individuals with disabilities find their connection and community? Like, what would be your suggestion?
Well, let's jump to the adult stage because I think if you haven't started, it can be much harder because you're not in constant circulation like a school, special education teacher, case carrier, OTPT speech. That all may not exist anymore, right? Once you're in the adult realm. So, how do you find community? I would certainly advise somebody, even though you may not like social media, there are Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups that are specific to areas, counties, cities, states. You can certainly reach out to people like me who are a voice in this community to help you find others. Obviously, I'm going to say join We Are Brave Together if you're a caregiving mom. And we'll also, if you're a dad out there are resources. It's just not as I think there's resources for parents, and we can direct you certainly. Um, I think you can go to podcasts and feel like you're not alone by listening to other people's stories. Now, I would also message those podcast hosts. I'm looking for community. My child is an adult. What suggestions do you have? So you can do some research and find people who are blogging, writing about this, who are podcasting, who are movers and shakers in the world of disability. You can certainly go to groups like Undivided, and they can help probably. Um, and certainly within your diagnosis, there's often a community, but I know there's like 7,000 rare diseases. So not every diagnosis has a community or has a support group or has a Facebook group. If you are in the rare disease world, Global Genes is a wonderful resource, and I know they would be happy to provide community or help you find other parents as well. So it does take a little work. I just want to acknowledge that it does take a little effort or a lot of effort when you're tired. If you're an introvert, it just sounds like, holy cow, that is overwhelming. And loneliness is a detriment to our physical and mental health. I say this in one of my talks. You can either choose to smoke 15 cigarettes a day or find community because it's that powerful. Loneliness has such an effect on our physical health and, as we know, our mental health.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, that's so powerful. Those are some great suggestions too, and they're not always suggestions that are easy for people. Like you said, not everybody likes social media, not everybody's a natural to it. But there are, like your community, We Are Brave Together has a private Facebook group, right? Which is great because it's just your caregiving parents that are in there, right? And so you don't have to worry about not being supported or not feeling supported. We also have our Caring Futures community private Facebook group, and that is a place where you can go and you can just be yourself and not worry about the tears or like however you're feeling is absolutely okay, and you'll go there and you'll find support. Really great suggestions. In your experience, you have connected with many caregivers and parents of children with disabilities. What are some of the positive things that you've heard from families and caregivers about the benefit of finding their community and connecting with others that are walking similar paths? And how do these connections help caregivers fight burnout and isolation?
Well, I mean, I think I've probably answered that, in that just being surrounded by people who have shared experiences, you are understood. There's a bond that's there even without really even saying anything. Even though our caregiving lives might look different, our diagnoses are different, there's still things that we share. We share that we all had to adjust our expectations about motherhood, parenthood, family life. We had to figure out our identity as parents. Oh, I'm not just a regular mom, or I'm not just a regular dad. So what does that mean? And is this going to be all encompassing, or do I get to celebrate other parts of myself? We all have something in common, where we have people in our lives who have said and done the wrong thing, whether it was well intentioned or not. And we know the validation that we can give each other, and the support, and the I see you, and yes, you can. There's so much strength that we can gain from each other by hearing each other's stories, and hearing the highs and hearing the lows, and watching each other navigate it. There is just an energetic response. I know that sounds really woo woo, but when we are in the presence of other people who understand, and we're all sharing our love and war stories, it does do something to us. It does something to our mental health. And it's better than a text message of I care about you. I really think there is something psychological to seeing each other's faces and hearing each other's voices. It does boost our mental health.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what I would do without my fellow caregiving moms. They're some of my best friends, right? And and I didn't even know I needed them, but until I found them, so just showing up to that first support group here in Santa Barbara, and I avoided it for, I don't know, several weeks, and then what finally one day I just said, just go. And once I did, it's like you couldn't stop me.
Mm.
I found my people, and it was such a wonderful feeling. So we're coming to the end of our conversation. I just want to ask one last question. What is the most important part of our conversation today that you want our viewers to remember and take away about finding community and putting some of these suggestions into action on their caregiver journey?
Well, I don't think that I've said this yet, but I want to say that you are worthy of finding meaningful connections and a loving, supportive community. You deserve it. We all deserve a sense of belonging, and we find that with others who are in similar circumstances. It is our birthright to have a sense of belonging and to feel like we belong. And you find that in community. You deserve it. You are worth it. Hopefully, that knowing that, or accepting that, or believing that, will then propel you to take the first hard steps to find community or create community.
You talked a little bit about sharing stories today. Before we move on to the next part of our webinar, we're going to get into some classes and some supports that Caring Futures offers. But I was just wondering, would you like to say a couple of words about your upcoming book that's coming out? Because I think that it's a wonderful way to make connection, and see how those stories empower you, to find your community.
Yes, thank you for asking. So, we have our first anthology coming from We Are Brave Together. It's called Becoming Brave Together. It will be available May 1st on Amazon. And we have 22 writers, including myself. I wrote the introduction. We have 21 other writers, just like Felisa, who are caregiving moms who contributed to this anthology. And they represent different diagnoses and different ages of children. But there's a common thread throughout: absolutely fierce love, fierce advocacy. And I think This is a book that will validate all caregiving parents for sure. And we hope that caregivers will hand this book to their friends and family, because when your friends and family only hear your story, I think it's easy for others to minimize it. But if your friends and family read this book and they read 22 stories, it's going to have an impact. Oh my gosh, I never knew. I didn't realize. And I hope that it will activate friends and family to offer support, because yes, we have an obligation to take care of our mental health and to try to prevent burnout. And the systems are against us. Not everyone in the state of California, not everyone in the United States or around the world have the supports and the resources that they need. And we need a lot, and we're not getting it. So I hope that this book will activate some of our friends and family to move and to support us in new ways.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm excited about it. It's definitely going to be a wonderful resource, and I hope lots of people will read it and purchase it. It's available again May 1st on Amazon. Speaking of resources, I want to get into a little bit about the Future is Now class series. The Future is Now, Designing a Support Plan for You and Your Adult Family Member, is a 6-week live online class series where caregivers develop a comprehensive future planning guide for the caregiver and their adult family member with a disability, all in a small and welcoming environment. Futures Now classes are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, also offered in Spanish. Self-Care Matters, Well-Being for the Caregiver is a 2-week live online class series where caregivers learn about and practice tips, resources, and strategies to improve or sustain their well-being. Self-Care Matters classes are on Mondays and also offered in Spanish. Visit the Caring Futures website and join our mailing list to keep up to date on these offerings, to register for classes and more. I also want to invite you to continue this conversation and join our Caring Futures Facebook group. It's a private group only for family caregivers and is a safe space for us to share our triumphs and challenges. A link to the Facebook group will be shared in the chat right now. So now it's time for our Q&A. We're going to begin the Q&A session. If you would like to ask a question, then we ask you that you type your question into the Q&A feature, and we will answer you directly or call on you to unmute and ask your question directly to our guest. You can use the raise hand feature if you have a question. Once you raise your hand, then we will allow you to turn on your audio and turn on your video and ask to speak to our guests directly. We will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. If you would like to use the ASL interpreter to ask your question, please raise your hand and request video access in the Q&A. So let's see. We have some questions. All right. Jessica, do you see the questions?
Let's see. Yes, I see the questions.
Okay, so do you want to take that top one? JWE Outreach, is your son's diagnosis similar to trisomy 21?
I mean, it's not. I mean, there might be some symptoms like the low muscle tone that might be similar to trisomy 21. Ryan's definitely has a lot of anxiety. He's affected intellectually. He was affected, academically, didn't get his high school diploma. PWS is a spectrum as well. And there are kids that are lower and higher functioning. I know we're not supposed to really say that anymore, but there are different, in PWS, there's a tiny percentage of kids that might go to college. But it's a spectrum really where kids fall in terms of their anxiety, behaviors, the food drive, academically. So there might be some overlap of symptoms.
Yeah, but not exactly. Yeah. Family Voices of California has a comment and a question. This is fantastic. What a great organization. Could you speak on fathers and their need for connection and respite? I know that you guys do some stuff on that, so that's a great question. And offer any insights from your mom groups about how to get fathers involved.
Thank you. I love this question. And I will own that we are very mom centric, that our organization is focused on moms. In the past, we have done some dads' nights. In the past, we did offer a virtual support group for dads monthly or every other month. This was in the middle of the pandemic. And dads don't show up because I don't think that dads realize that they need support and until they're around other dads. I think men are still culturally indoctrinated to not necessarily think about a support group for themselves. And I think the best way to get dads involved, because I think it is important. I happen to have a husband who went with me to all the support groups and conferences, and he was just very hands on. He's social, he's a gatherer and a connector, just like me. So it was very natural for him, although he didn't have that many dads' nights with other PWS dads like I was having with the moms. It how we got the dads involved were couples nights. So what I would encourage, maybe your husband doesn't want to show up to anything that's solely for dads, and I can definitely give you some resources for that. But perhaps grab another couple, grab a couple other couples, and and see the response and watch kind of the outcome, because I think that might be an easier way for dads who are isolated, who often don't voice what they're needing or aware of what they're needing. And again, this is hasty generalizations. Um, I think to expect dads to reach out on their own for support is probably unrealistic, but maybe through couples or getting together with other families, fathers can also see that they are not alone. And they'll hear other fathers share their story and go, oh my gosh, you get it? They have that same aha moment too when they hear other fathers share what it's like.
That's a great suggestion. I like the suggestion of like a family gathering without the kids, or a couples, dinner or retreat, something like that with other couples. That would might make them feel more comfortable with it. Yeah. So we have one other question here. Susan, um, I was lucky enough to participate in a center-based early intervention program and bonded there. Our kids started school at the same time, hit puberty around the same time, started our living wills around the same time. We have been a source of strength and resources for each other. When will center-based early intervention programs come back? Hmm.
That's a great question. That's not a question that I can answer, but they are coming. I mean, there are groups that are back. I know in my area, we've got Momentum, we've got Napa Center, which Napa is, I think they have like 8 or 10 locations worldwide, maybe even more than that. So I know there's definitely center-based programs. I'm not the one who would know all of them in California, but that is a great place to find community. And again, another idea for finding community is just talking to some of the specialists in your life, doctors, OTs, PTs, speech therapists, anybody you hire privately, ABA therapists, ABA companies, asking your case carrier with the regional center, if you are connected with regional center, obviously they have to get permission from somebody else. They're not going to hand you a list of all their clients, but if you ask your case carrier, can you please connect me, or your social worker, connect me with some other parents in the area, they can ask those parents for permission and connect you. I've had it done for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say we had a wonderful pediatrician here in Santa Barbara that when Lily got to be older, and he recognized there was some similarities in children of other parents, and see, he just took it upon himself to ask that other parent, and the next thing I know, that other parent's giving me a call. He connected us without even really me asking for it. He just recognized that it was necessary because I was new to town and I didn't really know very many people. And I so appreciated that. It meant everything to me. I
I love
also
that.
wanted to answer Susan's question about the center-based um, family resource centers. There are a lot of those around California. And I know here locally, we have Alpha Resource Center, which is like lifespan supports. So if you can look in your area for that. I do, like you said, it is coming back. That is an option coming back. There are many more center-based community outreach. So I'm excited to hear that too. Does anyone want to raise their hand and come off of unmute and ask their question? I do see we have one more question in the Q&A. Do you have any tips? This is from Nicole. Do you have any tips for overcoming social anxiety or introversion to take the plunge into reaching out to find community? This is such an important question.
Oh, thank you so much for asking that. I would say that you can say to yourself, like, yes, I may be an introvert and I need community and I need to find a couple of friends. And so, and I am worthy of those connections that will be life giving to me. And I think if you just give yourself compassion for this is hard for me because I'm an introvert and I'm going to just take one step. I'm going to take one, I'm going to take it slow. Don't put any shoulds. Don't put on tremendous pressure like I'm going to go find a retreat and be around 15 other people that I don't know for a weekend. No. If you want me to help connect you with one or two people, I'd be happy to make those efforts. And if you do have social anxiety, I'm not a therapist, but I know that there's definitely a lot of resources for that. I think I would guess that once you experience some of the benefits of a truly supportive community, it might provide incentive for working on your social anxiety to get to the next thing or to be a part of the next thing. Again, I'd be happy to do some research and give you some resources about what to do when you have social anxiety that gets in the way of getting out and getting with other people. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Thank you for that, Jessica. That was a really, really great answer. If anyone did want to get in touch with you, what would be your suggestion for that?
They could reach out
Directly
through,
directly through the website for We Are Brave Together?
they could do that. They could fill out an inquiry form. They can send an email to hello@wearebravetogether.org and send in any questions.
Okay, great. We've got another question here from a father of a daughter with non-speaking autism in the North Bay near San Francisco, California. Do you know of any support groups that would be a good fit for me?
I we do not yet have a connection circle in the San Francisco area, but I'd be happy to do a little research. I would say definitely through the different autism groups, you might be able to find something specific in your area. So I would start by looking at Facebook groups in San Francisco or your particular city that also are for parents of kids with autism.
Sounds good. And then you can also, of course, fill out an inquiry form for We Are Brave Together. And then I'm going to also make the suggestion of the ARC of San Francisco. Maybe reach out to the ARC of San Francisco. They might know of some local support chapters for you as well. It looks like, wait, let's see, there are others of us in the San Francisco looking for a connection. Oh, good to know.
Well,
So
I'd be happy to start a connection circle as well in the San Francisco area. If there's any caregiving moms who are interested, just reach out to me and I would be happy to. We have curriculum, we train our leaders, we support our leaders. They have mentors that support them on a monthly basis and be happy if anyone's interested. Also, we do
yeah,
have
there sounds like there's definitely a need for it. So
absolutely there's a need in every city
yeah,
all over the world, right?
Nancy
Okay,
says
great,
yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Okay, Nancy, so reach out hello@wearebravetogether.org and I'll send you some information.
Let's see.
Oh,
Do we?
so we have Family Voices of California who's raised their hand and on unmute to ask a question or make a comment.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Jessica and Felisa, and thank you so much for this. This was extremely powerful. One of the things I wanted to ask you, particularly in our line of work, is the importance of making connections during the early intervention process. And with your organization, especially with your expertise, I'd love to hear, because I believe it's something that's so necessary, especially in the early intervention process, because that's when you feel so alone. How do you see the difference between those mothers that come to your groups during that early intervention process and the vulnerability that they have, as opposed to those that are a little bit maybe farther along in their journey? And why is early intervention connection so important?
Well, that's a great question. Okay, so a few things that immediately come to mind is that you're establishing connections and community early on. I think the longer you go isolating, obviously it's detrimental, but it's also hard to break patterns. If you're the mom or the dad who just does it all, doesn't ask for help, doesn't reach out for connection or community, it's hard to shift that. And then you're more likely to hit burnout where then you're probably forced to. Um, in the early years, I mean, when you get a diagnosis, it's overwhelming. You're paralyzed with what do I do next? What is the first thing I do? And we learn so much from others. I learned immediately, okay, when Ryan turns 3, the regional center will say this is what you do. I learned so much about navigating systems, so many specifics from my fellow parents. So it's really, really important to gravitate towards other people who are just a little bit ahead of you, or they're in the same boat and you're navigating and learning together. That is a huge support, because it's overwhelming to go and fill out the paperwork for X, Y, and Z. But if your friend down the, your friend is also doing the same thing, you can hold each other accountable, you can encourage each other, you can say, how did you answer this on the questionnaire? Which direction am I supposed to go here? You're not doing it alone. And that allows you to exhale so much fear and anxiety. So yes, to early intervention era season, to finding other people who are in the trenches with you.
Yeah, that parent to parent support cannot be underestimated. I mean, it's so very important at any stage. And I definitely resonate with your question about the early years, though. Our family was so alone during that time. We had very little support. We were lucked out with really great teachers, and school was supportive, but that was the only support we had. And we still had our battles there too. So wow, this has just been such a wonderful conversation. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate it, Jessica. And I hope that everybody here that joined us today got some great tips and some great information for moving forward in your caregiving journey as well. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We don't have any other questions, but I want to thank you again, Jessica, for joining us, and thank you all for joining us today as well. Have a great day, everyone.